All right. Hello, hello, hello. This is Charles Ravenel, Life and Marriage Transformation Scientist, and we are on for a special masterclass on tonight. I entitled it "Enough is Enough" because what God was instructing me to do is to host this tonight because I wanted to go to bed. I was traveling all weekend. I didn't leave the office until almost 7 o'clock, and I just kept feeling oppressed to do this. And lately, he has just burdened me with women and wives that were going through destruction and that was being really verbally, just to be honest with you, verbally abused and mistreated in their marriage. And I was in a marriage like that, not with my husband now, but a previous marriage. My first arrangement, it really wasn't even a marriage I was in. I was abused. I was abused physically, emotionally, spiritually, whatever way you can think of. I was, and so I know what it feels like to love someone and to give your all to someone, and they give you their butt to kiss. To be treated, to be called a bee, a hoe, a trick, a whatever negative word you can think of, and then the person still expects to get sex from you, or still expects you to cook, still expects you to be this wife, God-fearing woman, or whatever they expect. So I know what that feels like. And for at first I was like, God, why do you want me to talk about this? Like, I have no relation with this right now. This is not my story. This is not my truth. And he had to bring to my remembrance where I was, back then when I first got married in 2000, was it 99 or 2000? And what I went through and how devastating it was, and how, and with me, I don't know about you all, but mine was physical abuse as well. And he gave me a gateway to get out of that relationship. He gave me permission to be removed from that relationship, and he gave me the door. And I walked through it, and I didn't never look back. And even after I got out of that situationship, it still took a long time for healing to manifest. It took a long time for fear to subside, because I used to fear for my life, because this person was very abusive and very manipulative, very deceitful, a very hurt person. And what I do know about hurt people, they hurt other people. And because they are going through living hell in their lives, because they fail to confront their fears, confront their hurt, and confront their pain, they will make you feel like they will try to threaten your life. They will make you feel like you're the issue, you're the problem, you're the reason why the marriage is the way it is. And they will continue to blame you and make you feel like you're nothing, you're worthless, you're nobody. So I know how that feels. And when I got out of that situation, I promised myself that I would never, ever allow anybody to treat me like that, to the point where I became the abuser. Guys that I dated after that situationship, I became the abuser, and I met some really amazing men. So my story wasn't men dogged me and they got over on me and all that. That was my story, because I actually met a lot of great men. I met in my life, men that could have been potential husbands, would have been and is today great fathers. Everybody has something that they're dealing with, but I never gave them a chance, and I dogged them because of how I was treated by this one man that had all of this influence over my life and was in my life for over a decade. So I said, okay, God, so I guess I need to share with these women um, and really just encourage them and give them some strategies and things that they can use if they decide to stay, and some things that they can do if they decide to go. So let me go ahead and pray. Father in heaven, Lord, I just thank you for this day. I thank you for this opportunity, dear Father. I thank you that you are God, and beside you there is no other. God, this is marriage, Mind Your Marriage Monday. And you know that every Monday, Lord God, I pour out for marriages, for wives, oh Lord, for healing, for deliverance, and for you to just stand up in these marriages. Right now, Lord, we're on this masterclass tonight because we are sharing our truth as it relates to the type of marriages that these women are in. And I'm praying, oh God, that there's something that you say in me and through me that will give these women some comfort, some peace, and some direction. Lord, give them clarity on what they need to do next. But it is your will, Lord God, that they glorify you. And it is your will that they're safe. It is your will that they're loved, that they're cared for. It is not your will for them to be abused, to be mistreated, manipulated, or deceived. So God, I pray that you speak to their hearts on tonight. For in your son Jesus' name, amen. So What I am going to tell you is that it is the will of the Lord that you be in a healthy marriage. It is not the will of the Lord that you be in a destructive, emotionally abusive marriage, physically abusive, spiritually, or what have you. You will have people that will tell you different things. You will have your pastor to tell you to fast and pray and everything's going to be okay. However, beyond fasting and praying, there's some actionable steps. And you guys, this is just a conversation with us tonight. So I am going to get back here and put my computer on my pillow. You have your pastor, or first lady, or whomever tell you that it's okay, and all you have to do is just be nice, and all you have to do is just don't say as much, and don't get him upset, and submit to him and all of that stuff. However, there are some actionable steps. There are some things that need to take place if you are in an emotionally destructive marriage. So let's define that real quick. There's a difference between destructive and disappointing. There's a difference between being in a destructive marriage and being in a disappointed marriage. A destructive marriage is one where you're being mistreated, you're being violated, you're being abused mentally, physically, financially, spiritually, all of that. Any type of abuse, verbally. Anytime you are being constantly blamed. A destructive marriage is also if your husband does not value your decisions, if he's constantly against you in any way. So even let's say with your in-laws or with his children, if he's prioritizing children and his in-laws above you to the point where he um, basically comes at you in front of them, like he puts you down, he speaks to you in a harsh manner, he treats you harsh, he makes fun of you, he doesn't give you the respect that you need. I was introduced to this couple, whereas the husband got mad at her because she didn't agree with something that he said, and they were together, they were out, and she didn't agree with whatever he said, so he got mad with her and he left her where she was, stuff like that. Get out, and kicking out the house, kicking out the car, not necessarily with the foot, but doing those type of things. So that's a destructive marriage. Somebody that makes you feel less than who you are, that does not praise you, because and does not make you feel valuable, make you feel honored, everything other than that. So everything opposite of the word of God is destructive, especially when the mistreatment part is huge. Now, a disappointing marriage can be, oh, my husband, I keep asking him to wash the dishes and he won't wash the dishes. My husband doesn't know how to communicate with me. He's silent, or he's more reserved. He doesn't open up. Or my husband is not that fun. I want to go and do things and he has no interest. Like, that's disappointing. There's no type of abuse, mistreatment, violations going on. It's just basically, he may not be, he might not have the personality that you want him to have. He may not be as fun as you, or do like different things like how you like to do. So what you have to understand, anybody that's in this type of marriage, as far as the man is concerned, you have to understand that they have things that they're struggling with. They have underlying issues and problems that they are dealing with in their own lives. And because of that, unresolved, because of that, you're getting the brunt force of your issue. Now, a lot of these men, because of pride, embarrassment, ignorance, or what have you, they are not getting the help that they need. They're refusing to get the help that they need. In fact, they're deflecting and making you feel as if you're the problem. They're constantly telling you that you're the issue, you're the problem. If you were to do this, then the marriage would be different. If you were to act like this, if you were to say this or whatever. So they're constantly looking at you as the issue, refusing to help themselves. What I'm going to tell you, if you're married to somebody like that, unless they are willing to get the help that they need, there is nothing that you can do to change that person. unless they are willing to confront their pain, their anger, their hurt, the fact that they have been violated, mistreated, betrayed, rejected, abandoned. If they are not going to deal with those things, the marriage will not get better. Now, you can have the grace to stay. You can have the grace to stay. If you feel like, okay, God is wanting me to stay here and he just gave me the grace, all power to you. But unless God came to me and came down from heaven and say, stay, I can't see myself staying in a situation like that, especially for a long period of time. Now, let me just, preface this. I'm not saying I would get a divorce, but what I am saying is that I would find safety and I will no longer be a verbal punching bag, an emotional punching bag for this person. I was speaking with someone the other day and I said, being in a destructive marriage is like being in a house with a gas leak. Carbon monoxide, odorless, colorless, tasteless, right? What happens when you're in a house that has a gas leak? What happens eventually?
You die.
Okay. Same thing in the marriage. It's like the marriage, the house is full of gas because that person continues to spread their destruction throughout the house. So unless you find safety, whatever that may look like for you, eventually you will die. Eventually you will be mentally challenged, emotionally unstable, physically unhealthy. There's so many things that will happen to you as a result. So my purpose on here tonight is not saying, oh girl, yeah, go get divorced. Yeah, that's what the Lord, that's not what my purpose is. My purpose is for you to understand that in order for you to be in that type of situation and to stay well, there are things that you have to do. And if you feel like God is telling you, okay, I need to save myself because I've been trying years or decades, I'm not sure how long, to just pretend as if everything's okay, to get along, to go along. But at my core, I'm dying. At my core, I'm dying. So I just want to share with you how you can strengthen your core. And then we'll also talk about some other things that you can do. So let me know if you have any questions before I share that. Okay.
Conference.
Is you asking a question?
Mm-hmm.
You asking a question? No? Okay.
No.
What I want to say is that what you don't want to do is enable or accept things and make excuses for behavior. I'll be the first to say men are hurting, they need healing, they're and because of that they will do this or do that or act this way. However, that is not an excuse for how they treat you. Even if there's been infidelity on your part, right? Even if you lied, even if you told a half truth or didn't show up in the way that you said that you would, that is not an excuse for their behavior. And they must be willing to take responsibility and take ownership for their behavior. So when I talk about strengthening your core, it's 4 areas that I'm going to share with you of what you need to do, and then I'm going to give you some action steps of what to do from here. The 4 core areas of what you need to do. So does everybody have something to write with? Make sure you get something to write with. So if you know anything about the core of your body, right? Sometimes that's the weakest muscle. And do you know why? Do you know why the core is sometimes the weakest muscle?
Oh.
Because we don't work that out a lot. A lot of the times when you see people working out, what do you see them doing? You see them lifting weights with their hands, they're getting their shoulders buff, they're getting their legs buff, and all of that stuff. Many times we're not working that core area. And when you don't work that core area, when your core is weak, sometimes you have pain in different area, your hips, your glutes, your legs. Sometimes you may even be balanced, things like that. But there's a lot of back pain, sciatic nerves. You have the stress. You have stress in your hip area, shoulder area, and all of that stuff. So when your core is weak, you're going to feel it in other areas. And when I first started feeling pain in my back, in my sciatic nerve, I had a sciatic nerve. My doctor told me that I needed to strengthen my core because what he said is that as you get older, you kind of shrink, and your core, it takes the bulk of the weight or what have you between the top of your body and the bottom half of your body. So some ways to strengthen your actual core, because it's your actual posture, right? I don't know if any of you down in cheers like I do sometimes, but sometimes I do that, and that's not the best way to strengthen the core, and it does cause some discomfort, and it places a strain on our soft tissues, because that's where all the soft tissue is at. Sticking your bottom out, your booty out. So if you happen to stick your booty out, or you have a curve in your back, there may be some, it's called hyperlordosis, and this is an exaggerated inward curve of the lower back. So all of these things can affect your core. So some of the things that we can do to correct these postures is like planks. So I've been doing that, laying down on my side, lifting my legs, standing out, stretching. And I need to do more of that because I've been feeling lately that my core is weak. The same thing with your core, with your marriage, but we're going to talk about. You have to strengthen the area where you may be weakened so that you can, if you're staying, you're going to be able to stay well, and you're not affected to what's going on around you. Your core isn't only necessary for the physical body, but it's also physical of what we're going to talk about tonight: your mental, your spiritual, your emotional health. And right about now, you're realizing that you have some difficult choices in front of you. Many of you have been in this marriage for months, maybe years, and some maybe decades. And there are some decisions that you're going to have to make sooner than later, so that you want to eventually, right? So number one, when I talk about strengthening your core, number one is going to be, you have to be committed to truth and reality. Truth and reality. And this is hard because again, you have pastors, spiritual leaders, people telling you, oh, parents, siblings, whoever, oh, God hates divorce, and you should try to work it out. Both are true. God hates divorce, and you should try to work it out. You know what else God hates? God hates you being mistreated. And every situation doesn't end in divorce, no. However, some situations warrant it. Because if you're in a marriage where it's unreasonable and it's so hard to stay, if your spouse makes it so hard and impossible to stay, God honors that. I've seen too many times where people have been in emotionally abusive marriages, started off like that, and then it went to verbal abuse, which that is combined with the emotional, and then it went to physical abuse, and then these people ended up losing their life, either them taking it themselves or by the hand of the ultimate abuser. Now you can't tell me that's the will of the God for your life. Nobody's going to make me believe that. Okay, so you have to be wise in your own understanding. So committed to your truth and reality is the truth and reality of what is happening right now, right? How are you being treated? Your husband's refusal to take ownership and to change. Him not even open to the idea, or him may say, oh yeah, I'll change, but that's only that's only because he thinks that's what you want to hear. That's only because he's a manipulative person. So knowing that truth, one of the best predictors of future behavior is past behavior. So if he tells you that he has changed or he's changing, don't take that for face value. You want to observe his actions. Is he doing things differently? If he's not getting his way, what happens, right? What happens when you tell him no? Is he resorting back to the same thing, saying the same things, being the same way that he was before, but he put on a little facade and pretended that he was being better? You know, I know this couple and they actually got separated. And one of the boundaries was that he could come to the house because the children were there, but he had to knock on the door and he couldn't spend the night over, and there was a curfew. She had a curfew as to what time he could, come over, what time he had to leave. So he was over to her house and he was watching the game. And it was getting late and she was like, well, I'm tired. You have to go now because I want to go to bed. And he was like, I don't care if you're tired. I'm watching the game. Like, you can go ahead and go to bed. So right then and there, he was violating her boundaries. But yet he kept saying that he had changed. But when she was telling him that he needed to leave because she wanted to go to sleep, he was not respecting that. So, they ended up getting in an argument or whatever, and he ended up leaving. So before that, he was pretending that he was doing better. He was, being nicer to her and things of that nature. But his true colors eventually came out when he didn't get his way. So you have to be able to look at those things. Don't be naive when he's saying, "Oh, I changed. I'm going to do things differently." I'm not saying not at him or not at the uh, the the wound, but you really need to test it out and see if he has really changed. So if he's saying, okay, I'm not going to call you names anymore, I'm not going to curse at you anymore, but as soon as he feels like you did something to violate him, hurt him, disrespect him, and he resorts back to that same behavior, then he has not changed. So don't allow his lies to become lies, right? Don't choose your version of reality because it makes you feel better about what is actually and truthfully happening in your marriage. So understand that your version of reality is not his version of reality. Choose what is right and know what is right, regardless of what he tries to tell you. Don't be fooled by him pretending that things have changed. You have to be stronger than that. Any questions regarding number 1?
No.
Okay. Number 2, be open to growth, instruction, and feedback. So you're on here on tonight. So kudos to you. All right. So you need a level of support from people that are not just going to agree with you, and definitely not people that are going to be against you. So you want to make sure that whoever you're getting feedback from, that they are giving you the scriptures, but they're not biased as it relates to the scripture, that they're not using scriptures to keep you in harm's way, because people can use scriptures in 2 ways. Okay. So one of the scariest things that you must do if you want to become whole is to be honest with yourself and getting the help that you need. Because while you're trying to save face and stay in this destructive marriage and trying to remain sound mentally, emotionally, and all of this stuff, you need a level of support if you're not getting that at home. While your husband, undoubtedly needs help too, so do you. Because you already see that he's not changing. You already see it's a much deeper issue. You already see that it's going to take him surrendering before he makes any change in his life. That's hard to be in that type of situation. I can only imagine at this stage in my life. I was young back then. I got my first marriage. I was 19 years old. Now I'm 40. I can't even imagine at 40 years old being in that type of marriage and having to deal with all of the other things that I have going on, ministry, work, changing the world. And here I have to be in, I can't imagine that. So I can only imagine the mental and the emotional effect a relationship like that would have on me. So you want to make sure that you're constantly growing. And what I can tell you, the more you grow, the less crap you're going to deal with. The more you grow emotionally, the more you grow spiritually, the less crap you're going to deal with, because you will have very low tolerance for abuse, for anybody mistreating you, for anybody treating you like you're worth nothing. You can feel sorry for people all day long and say, okay, I understand, and that's fine, but it doesn't have to be at the detriment of your life. So no one becomes a healthy individual without the willingness to hear feedback and receive correction, number one, from God, his word, and otherwise people as well. Your openness and willingness are mandatory during the process of your life when you're trying to seek healing and wholeness for your own self, your own life. Psalms 27 and 11 says, teach me, O Lord, and lead me on a level back because of my enemies. Your husband is portraying himself as your enemy right now because he's in violation. Your enemy is somebody that hurts you, somebody that abuses you, somebody that attacks you. So right now, that's how he is portraying himself. And again, until he gets help, there is very little that you can do. You praying and you fasting is so that you can stay well, so that the peace of God can continue to be on your life if you're planning to stay in that scenario, so that what he's doing, how he is doing, is not affecting you. It is not taking a toll on you. You're not breaking down every day or every other day or every other week, because those that are able to stay well, they are not, if they are breaking down, it's not happening often anymore. They have learned, they have received peace, an extreme amount of peace in that situation, and they have zero expectations in that marriage. And as a matter of fact, they have come to the reality that that marriage is completely a ministry. That's all it is. They have come to the notion, and they have come to grips with the fact that they will never receive the level of love that they desire from their husband. And they have come, they've come to grips with that, and they're okay with that. And they understand that the whole purpose of that marriage in this current moment is for ministry purposes. That is it. That is it. So they're not expecting anything else. So if that is your assignment, then that's your assignment. I can't argue with what you say your assignment is, but you better know that that's the assignment that God has for you, and nothing else is going to go down in that marriage. So you may see some days may be better than others, but for the most part, you're in there to just minister to that individual, and there's very little of anything else going on, and that takes a very strong person to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any questions regarding that one? Anybody, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, is this good stuff so far?
Oh yes, real good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, girl. Okay. Sophia, Keisha, you guys enjoying so far?
Okay, so you go back. You said that last part, that the marriage, the sole purpose is just ministry only.
If you're in that situation, and that's what God has assigned to you, and if you have come to grips that you will not receive the love, affection from your husband that you desire to receive from him.
Okay.
So if you've come to grips with that, and that's what God has revealed to you, as far as, okay, this marriage is the sole purpose of this marriage is ministry. And I know we hear that marriage is ministry. I'm not talking about on the side of you and your husband doing ministry together and things of that nature. No, your life living is ministry, and that's what you portray in that marriage. So you're constantly not necessarily ministering to him, but how you're showing up in that marriage is ministry. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, number 3 is responsible for, the R is for being responsible for yourself and respectful toward others without dishonoring yourself. Again, I have to go back to that gas leak. Living in a place, in a space like that is like being in a house full of gas. So not only will you be affected, but if your children are there or people, anybody that comes in that space will be affected, because that's what is seeping out from him. So what you have to be mindful of, though, is do not allow his destructive ways cause you to become destructive. Don't allow his toxic ways cause you to become toxic. And many of you, if you've been in this situation for a long period of time, you may have seen this already. You may have seen where you are becoming like him, in some way or another. How you treat people, how you even treat yourself, how you, your mindset, how you show up sometimes, how, it could be from evil thinking or toxic thoughts, or, how you're treating coworkers or getting frustrated with people. And I want to hear from you all. Have you experienced any type of destructive mindset, behavior, patterns, attitudes, or any toxic mindset, behavior, or attitude as a result of being in this type of marriage so far?
At times.
Yeah. How about you other ladies?
Hello?
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, at times.
Okay.
But I'm more aware now. But yeah, I have been in times, especially in the beginning.
Good. Yeah. Good that you're aware. That's good that you're aware. Sophia and Keisha?
Not really. I was gonna say the only probably destructive behavior that I have is like I noticed that my coping mechanism is like eating because of the stress of it all. And so I've noticed that that's been heavily, like a lot, like is intensifying more because of the fact that it just seems to weigh on me a lot. And so that's how I've been coping. And then like that's not a normal behavior of mine, but it just seems to be like a behavior that I picked up really bad because that's how I'm kind of just coping with it.
Mm-hmm.
And dealing with my emotions, because I feel like um I don't want to feel like it's hopeless or helpless, but at the same token, I just feel like um, it's hard to deal with, and so that's my way of just kind of numbing it or whatever and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think what you said, the number one in the beginning, was the fact that I don't think I probably until this month came to the truth, like the reality of it. I think I'm gonna be honest, like I kind of went into a state of shock because I've never experienced anything like that. And so I just kind of just went into like a numb mode, like to deal with the reality and the truth
Mm-hmm.
of the matter. And so now it's going back to God and like, okay, in this moment, what do you want me to do now with it next? Because I had to accept like the reality of it, what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I told you guys, like, I became my ex-husband. I was an evil person. Oh my God. Like when I got out of that, I even saw when I was in it, because I was in it for so long. I was with this person for over 10 years. And when I got out of it, like I treated men, more so it was men. It wasn't other people. I did have a nasty, I lie. I did have a nasty attitude toward other people too. But more so when I got in relationship with men. And even now, I'll tell you guys no lie, even now, I have to be mindful, because that was a part of who I was. And although, yes, I'm saved and I'm set free and I'm delivered and I have an amazing husband and all that, but certain triggers, right? Certain things that may trigger me, even if, because I remember my husband, he said something to me one time and I just like went off. So just even things that may trigger me, and I'm now more aware and disconnecting my past from my future, and knowing that nothing about that is anywhere in my life right now, right today. And knowing that truth and continue to tell myself that, and seeing that and repeating that is how, you know, I stay on the even playing field and not get all crazy because I was once in a very crazy abusive relationship. Know that how your husband is treating you has nothing to do with you. And I've told and I've spoken to a few of you before, has nothing to do with you. This has all to do with him. And again, until he gets help, let me say this. If his mother or his legal guardian, whoever raised him, was not able to change him and help him, what makes you think you can? If she failed at it, his whole mama, if she failed, what makes you think you have a better way to do it and a better shot?
I don't.
And this is if he fails to change, if he fails to take responsibility, he will be held accountable for his action and his behavior that he's displaying toward you. He will be held accountable.
Can I
Now,
ask?
go ahead.
So my question that I wanted to know is, because as I've like been evaluating some of this and looking at it and just kind of assessing it, does some of this have to do like with childhood? Because I feel like I don't know my mother-in-law like completely 100% well, but as time is going on and he like mentions things, I feel like a lot of the breakdown has to do with like his relationship with his mother and things he saw. And he'll like often vocalize to me how he doesn't want to be like that because things that triggered and he didn't like as a child growing up. But I want to tell him, even just like recently, like even though he doesn't want to be like that, and he'll vocalize it to me, his concerns of what he saw in the household and things he disliked, he's actually becoming that. It, like his behaviors and some of the things that he's displaying. And then even for me, like my some of his behavior like reminds me of my biological birth father. It's like it's like flashbacks from our parents, if that makes sense. Like it's like seeing our parents in modern day now, like some of those spirits and things. It's like seeing it currently, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's like I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm just like processing it all. But I just, as I watch and I listen to him, and he kind of stings his mom a lot, but then he's also been kind of open. And when he does open up and share things that are characteristics of her, and like, it's a lot. It's like, he doesn't say he doesn't want to be argumentative and stuff. And he didn't like how she kind of like chewed him a lot, because I guess she was really strict on him as a mother. But he's like that, like he's with meticulous with things, and then he gets like so burnt out and out of shape about something, like little things being out of order, and it's like it's contradicting, because it's almost like but I know he doesn't see it.
It's a woman's. You heard of a woman scorn, right? You've heard of a woman scorn, a woman being scorned. So he's a man scorned, and you're on target. Absolutely, it has everything to do with childhood, from childhood to young adulthood to from childhood to middle age to young adulthood. And let me tell you this. Typically, we marry a few different people and vice versa. You will either marry somebody like your father, just like your father. You will marry somebody that can provide the father figure attributes to you, or you will marry somebody completely opposite of your father. And when I say like your father, it doesn't always need to be in the negative sense, because we all have good and evil. Don't get it twisted. As good as we are, we all have good and evil inside of us. So you will see those three things: either somebody like your father, just like your father, somebody completely opposite of your father, or somebody that can be a father figure to you because you were missing an element from your father, or missing the element of your father altogether. So for me, my husband's like my father in a lot of ways. Mannerism, work ethic, things of that nature. I see that in my father. I'm like my husband's mother, just like her. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, but he can definitely have the bad parts and or the good parts and vice versa. So when you say the relationship with his mother is strange or is weird, is for a reason, and there's some things that are not really being told. There's some things that have not been dealt with, and there's a lack of healing that has been brought forth. Hence why now he's in this relationship with this very passive, reserved person, and that's not in a negative sense, Keisha. That's a very great gift that you have, but he is really using you as like a target, like you're the target for whatever unresolved pain and issues and hurts. And like you said, he's like your father, that it was familiar. It's like a familiarity. It's like a familiar spirit, right? So you attract what you knew, or which is either you attract what you know or you attract what you desire. And sometimes when we do that, we miss out on all the other elements of that person because we can only see a portion of that person until you get into a close confined space like marriage. What marriage forces us to do is to be in a confined place with someone that we hardly know, right? Because they're still getting to know. Even though I knew my husband, I've known him now 14 years, but still, I'm still learning things about him after 14 years of knowing him. But you're in a close, confined space with this person, and they cannot hide. They cannot hide. Everything is being exposed. You are being exposed. He is being exposed. So in that, things are going to come up. Failed relationships, failed relationship with parents, siblings, those things are going to come up. And the best thing, you just said something that was key. You say you don't really have a relationship and know his mother. That's what you said, Keisha?
Yes,
Yeah.
I did.
That's a problem. That's a problem. You're married to who knows him the best?
Ugh.
Okay. When my husband and I first got married, girl, we had our little married problems. Who I called? His mama and his daddy. I'm like, look, I don't know what's going on here, but I need y'all to intervene. I am so close to my husband's parents and his sister. You would think that they're my parents and my sister. That's a problem. When you cannot, and that's a ding, 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 red flag, bell rung, whatever you want to call it. If you can't connect with his mother and father, the father in his life, mother and our father and siblings, then we need to have another conversation. There's
Well,
something. Go
go
ahead.
ahead. Well, on the trip, like she's been observing and she sees everything. And I was told that right before we got married on our wedding day, it was brought back to me that, she said, "Oh boy, I hope he doesn't mess this up." And they, like a couple people, like the best man and the others were kind of like, they didn't understand what she meant by that. But she talked to me last when we were on a trip in Atlanta for my son-in-law's graduation. And she took a walk with me outside. And she said to me herself personally, because she knows and she's been observing and seeing everything that's been going on. And she's like, I think that I have some to do with how he acts and how his behavior is and stuff. But it just seemed like, in my mind, because he puts her on a pedestal when he talks of her, like he would say, "Oh, my mom, she was, great," or this or that. But then it's not till like lately, like I know maybe a few weeks ago when he says, "You know what, I hate sometimes when I get frustrated and it seems like I implode on you, but my mom used to do that." Or, he said like his mom emasculated his stepdad when he was growing up, his dad that he knew that raised him, like, the way that she was. And they talk about how strict she was about cleaning up and stuff. So he's like that. He's like OCD about everything.
It's more than that.
I know there's something I've been asking and wanted to be revealed because I know there's something that's being covered that I don't know.
I would talk to his mom.
Okay.
I would call her, and I would
Okay.
call her out of confidentiality. I would let her know that this is a private conversation. I don't need it to get back to him, but you need to know what's going on. If you're deciding to stay, this is what I'm going to say. Because there's some deeper things that has happened and that has gone on that somebody ain't saying something. Somebody ain't talking. And because of it, you're being affected, you're being abused, you're in an unhappy situation because of it. And it's not fear. So there's some cleaning up that needs to go on over there. And I pray that she is open and honest and she can own her own truth. Because let me tell you, I don't know if he was abused. I don't know what may have happened, but what I do know is when somebody is abused, is at the hand of another woman. Is at the hand of another woman. What I mean by that is that some woman knew about it and she allowed it to happen. She turned a deaf ear, blind eye, whatever. She allowed it to happen. And I'm not saying that's his case, but that's what I'm saying. So go deeper in that and really talk to her and see if you can have a private conversation with her and let her know you're not going to share with him. This is what you need to know for you because you're in a very distressed situation right now. And you don't have to go and, I mean, she probably know. She know. A mother knows. Trust me, a mother knows. You don't have to go all into details, but just let her know that you need to know that for yourself because you've been praying and fasting. And yeah, and you just need to know for yourself.
Okay.
Okay. Let me do R and then E. Let me finish R
No,
and
no
then E, and
no
then
problem.
we'll go back. We'll go back to answer some more questions because I want to make sure you guys get this. So, so even with the respect, so you can still have a level of respect for him. And hear me out with this, is because your respect for him is respecting his position, not necessarily respecting him as a person. Respecting him as his position and not necessarily respecting him as a person because his position, man, head, leader, will only be respected if he's acting in that space. Now, he can't be calling you a hoe, a trick, and stupid and all of that and expect to be respected. I'm not saying you go to toe for him because you have to be very mindful because things can happen, things can get out of control. But if that means that you need to leave, you need to go the other way, you need to remove yourself, then that's what you do, because you're not going to get into a worse situation than when you're already in. And that's what you have to be mindful of. Okay. So E is empathetic and compassionate toward others without enabling people to continue to abuse and respect you. And that's the part about, making excuses. So refusing to allow the current emotions you are feeling harden your heart and make you feel resentful, make you feel like bitter, start affecting your health. Because what I do know is that eventually this stuff is going to affect your health. If you're and like you said, Keisha, you're starting to eat excessively, and that's not something that you've done in the past. I'm not sure. I don't think you eat fruits and vegetables, right?
No.
Right. So, things like that. Having to get, just having to do certain things that wasn't the norm for you. Anything that's affecting your mental, your emotional, your physical, this stuff starts affecting you after a while because it's destructive. So your capacity for empathy and compassion is hardwired by God into your heart and in your brain. So you're treating him as if you want to be treated, not as if he's treating you. However, you're not going to be a doormat for anybody. You're not just going to sit there and allow someone to just continue to use you as a punching bag because they're broken. So when we talk about building your core, this is your core. That's your core strength, learning everything that you can and just being open to God and wise teachers, spiritual advisors, and people that will not make excuses for his behavior. However, give you solutions and things that you can do if you decide to stay, and then helping you to transition if you need to leave. And again, when I say leave, I'm not talking about divorce. Sometimes that needs to happen. Don't get it twisted. But leaving to make sure you're safe. And sometimes that needs to happen. And I know it's hard because you're like, okay, we share finances, we have kids, or we share this, we share that. So even thinking about that can be hard. Everybody's in a different financial status. Things are different. You've built the life together. However, you have to look at what needs to happen to make sure that I'm safe, to make sure that my children are safe if the children are involved, to make sure that my children don't take on these behaviors, to make sure that my children don't end up hating this person, because deep down inside, I know that this person may be a good person, but they're not showing their good side right now. And my children do not know any better. So I want to give you just 7 things, just a few examples of possible consequences when your husband is destructive, and things that you can possibly do, right? So number 1, you can end the conversation. So when he becomes verbally aggressive and things of that nature, just walk away. Or may say, or if he's the type to say, "Oh, don't walk away from me, go crazy," you might say, "Well, Jeremy, I understand this is a heated conversation right now. We can't have this conversation right now, so I'm going to walk away." So just give him a preface, what you're going to do, and remind him that you will not allow yourself to be talked to that way. You don't have to argue. These are boundaries. These are my boundaries, and you're overstepping them. So sometimes you have to leave the house. Okay. If he's been violent in the past, like physically violent, don't go in a room or anything like that. Go out the house, leave altogether, and make sure you have your cell phone and all that stuff. And you might not be at this pace, but I'm just sharing. Number 2, refuse to drive anywhere with him. If he's been known to be verbally abusive, like when you guys are riding together and doing things recklessly. Oh, true story, you guys. I got to tell you this with my ex-husband. So he was that person. We would be in the car, and if I said something he didn't like, he was physically abusive. So that was probably different than many of your scenarios. He would hit me. He would just spit on me. I mean, it was horrible. It was horrible. So if that's your story, refuse to get in the car with him. Number 3, exit the situation when he is escalating. So leave the room or leave the house when you feel it's heating up, or just be quiet. When you know something's about to go down, and you should know by now because it's been happening for so long, just refuse to continue in that cycle and refuse to go toe to toe with him. Number 4, initiate church discipline. So what that means is that bring in your spiritual leaders to be able to talk to him, or be able to talk to you guys together. And what I often say is not the marriage that has the issue, it's the individuals that's in the marriage. So I honestly and truly believe in individual counseling before you get to couples counseling. Because couple counseling, there's a lot of things that are masked, a lot of things may not be shared, whereas individual counseling, both you and him would be more open to sharing with, it will come out, not necessarily open, but things are going to come out more in individual counseling than it will. Because you have to think of it, if this person has dealt with abuse or any type of rejection violation, and they're already walking with so much pride and they have so much shame and guilt, they're not really going to want to demonstrate that in counseling. If you have a narcissist as a husband, he's not going to want to demonstrate that in couples counseling because he's too prideful. Number 5, you may have to withdraw sexual privileges. Sexual intimacy in marriage is designed to be an expression, a symbol of love and safety. It is hard to have sex with somebody that treats you like crap. So when you're repeatedly being destructive, and if this person may be being unfaithful, so now you're running the risk of getting a disease and being mistreated. So you have to, politely say that I don't feel valuable to you. I don't feel like you love me. I don't feel like your wife. And it's really hard for me to be in this place with you. And I can honestly tell you, when I tried that with my ex, and I'm just sharing this with you all, then he forced himself. And I don't know, I pray that you guys have not ever been in that situation. I've never even told my husband that. So you guys are really the only people that know that. But he forced himself, and he was my husband. So that's still marital rape. That's what that is. If I tell you no, you cannot use the Bible against me and say, because your body is my, no. I'm telling you no. There's a boundary that you're crossing right now, and you're violating me. Okay. Number 6, separate. This could be separate sleeping quarters, emotionally destructive, distancing yourself from that person, separating your finances, or asking him to move out. Are you moving out? I would say have him to move out, but sometimes these men are very harsh. I used to get kicked out of my house all the time. So thank God I had somewhere to go, but I know that that's not everybody's story. As it relates to finances, make sure that you ladies are saving your money. Make sure that this is the time. I'm not saying hide, but this is the time I would say make sure you have a credit card and make sure you have money put aside, especially if this person is controlling all of the money and you don't know where the money is, you don't have access to the money, and things of that nature. Make sure money that you get, that you're putting some to the side and you're not just being extremely naive, because I know someone in a situation right now, and I honestly believe that her husband is setting her up to leave one day. He's setting her up to leave, and he is making sure that he's okay, and he's pretty much restricted her from things financially, and he's really financially abusing her. And I don't want that to be your story. Okay. And then
Yes,
number
ma'am.
7, if you have to, call the police. Call the police. I've called the police several times when I was in that destructive marriage, and dummy me went back, but I did call the police. So there were things on record, on file, in the event something worse happened. Thank God for that. So just make sure that you're setting yourself up for success. And at the end of the day, what I tell wives that are in these type of situations, disconnect from the outcome of, I want my marriage to be saved, I want my husband to be saved. You have to disconnect from that and connect to the fact that you need to save yourself, and you need to grow, you need to heal, because part of you for selecting that type of person is your lack of healing. Part of it. That doesn't have to be the 100%. Part of it, because you like attracts like, right? The law of attraction, you attract what you are. Part of it, you were young when you married that person, and now that you have grown and you're maturing spiritually and mentally and emotionally, you see that this is not where you are anymore, and you married where you were versus where you were going. That happens a lot of time. So that's what I would say. I'll give you some work after this, but I'll go ahead and open the floor for questions, and we'll be on for another 10-15 minutes.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Sophia, Keisha?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Sophia? All right. Well, I'm going to give you these action steps. And Sheila, if you had checked the email.
I do have one question. Sorry, I just thought about
Mm-hmm.
it. While you were going through this, did you share with family and friends what was going on, or you just only talk to the spiritual leaders?
I did not know. I didn't talk to anybody.
Mm.
I didn't even talk to my spiritual leaders because I was, number one, I was so scared. So I was full of fear. I was young. So I was 19 at the time, 19, 20 years old. So that's another reason. And I just feared him because I used to get threatened all the time. And my story may be a little different. So the fear of him doing something worse or him finding out I shared, I didn't. And I didn't have that support system. I didn't have a support system like this. I didn't have a community group. Facebook wasn't out, anything like that. So I kind of just took it on myself and just really prayed. And God answered my prayer of removing him out of my life. And when God removed him, I filed for divorce.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for answering that question.
You're welcome. All right. All right. So these are your action items, action steps. So what I want you to do is memorize the 4 components to C.O.R.E. And I'll send you this email as well, and pick one of the 4 areas to intentionally practice this week. So consider the difference between empathy and feeling compelled to responsibility to fix someone else's problem. Again, you are not the fixer. Only God can fix him. And if he doesn't, and God needs his permission to fix him, because he's a gentleman. He's not going to do anything that he does not have permission to do. So start by reading Galatians 6:2-6, and it talks about carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will be fulfilled. You will fulfill the law of Christ. If anyone thinks that he thinks they are something when they are not, they deceive themselves. Each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. For each one should carry their own load. Nevertheless, the one who receives instruction in the word should share all good things with their instructor. Where have you been carrying the responsibility for your husband when he should be carrying his own load? I know, because you love him and you want to see him heal, and you know the potential is there, and you've seen other marriages turn around, and you've seen marriages like yours turn around, and you're probably asking God and wondering and questioning, what's happening? Why are we here? Why things can't seem to get to a place of healing? And I know that can be discouraging. However, do know that you are not responsible for carrying his load. That's on him. That's on him. And if it fails, whatever that means, that doesn't mean that you fail. That doesn't mean that you're a failure. So don't think that either, because that's what the enemy can make you believe, think, and feel. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. But if you have any questions, definitely let me know. I know a couple of you are enrolled in my Ready to Win in Marriage program. And like I shared, that program is more about you than it is your marriage. And a lot of people have the misconception of and I know many of you have talked to me before already, anything that I do is always going to be driven toward helping you. Now, your marriage, working out, that's great. But that is not the end goal. That is just a mere benefactor of you being in the program. The program is focused on your confidence, you building yourself, what you need to do, how you need to do it to stand up, stand tall, stand for, stand against, and stand out in that marriage. So that's what that's focused on. And if you like more information about that, I can definitely share it with you. But that's that. So ladies, I pray. I sent you all, Keisha, I'll send you that prayer that I did earlier. I don't think you got that prayer. Rochelle got it. Oh, Sophia and Keisha. So I'll make sure I send that to you guys. I'll send you the prayer, and I'll send you the
I got the
notes
prayer.
from tonight. Did you get it, Sheila?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you listen to it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. God was like, I'm like, God, you give me this heavy burden now. Come on now. I got other things to do. I'm just kidding. No. When you tell me to do something, I just do it, and I'm just obedient because I believe that somebody needs it, and somebody's going to be blessed by it. So I don't argue with him. I just do it. As much as I know how to obey, I do. Sometimes my flesh tries to kick in, but even when that happens, he pressed upon me so much to where I can't even ignore it. I'm like, oh my God, come on. So yeah. All right, ladies, I pray you have a blessed night, and definitely you all have my information. You know how to get in touch with me if you need to, and I'll be praying with and for you all.
Thank you.
Okay, you're
Good
welcome.
night,
I'll make sure I
ladies.
send you this recording as well, so I'll wait for it to download so I can see everything at once.
Okay then.
All right, you all have a good night.
Good night.
All right, bye-bye.